Hey guys, so unfortunately I deleted the original and I'm going to have to slow down the YouTube version of the sped up version. So this is going to have really terrible quality. I really apologize for that. I know a lot of you guys wanted to see this from the beginning, but unfortunately, like I said, I completely lost the file. So we're going to have to deal with this. It's pretty straightforward. Again, you put everything back together the way it came apart. There's no real special tools you're going to need. There's no real special process you're going to have to take. Just keep things clean as you go. Have oil on hand. I have, I think, 5W40 or yeah, I think it's 5W40 on hand, just to act as a lubricant, and some straight 30 weight that's in the little oiler that you're going to see coming up. So let's get into this. So here I'm going to start with actually oiling where the camshaft sits and where the crankshaft sits. Both of those bushings need to have a little bit of oil on them, just so you don't dry start anything, just so you don't mar anything up as you're putting it back together. I'm just showing here how I completely disabled the governor. I patched that hole in with some quick steel. Just making sure everything's clean. And okay, now I'm grabbing the crankshaft and checking the journals and going to clean it up and simply lubricate it with some 30 weight oil. Everywhere the bushing is going to ride, you want to have some oil. In it goes. I have it with the weight on the bottom because if you look, there's actually a step on the gear, and that step lines up with the with the camshaft. There's a little dot on the camshaft that it lines up with. This is some lithium grease. I'm just putting that on both of the lifters to make sure they kind of stay up in their pockets. You're going to see here in a minute that I'm actually jumping ahead. I actually install the cam and then take it back out. Anyway, here are the piston rings. I'm just checking to make sure that the oil ring fits on. Yes, it does. And I'm going to lube that with some more 30 weight oil. Make sure you don't cause any burrs. You can spread these pretty far without causing any damage, but you can break them, especially that oil ring, because it's so thick. And now I'm just putting oil in the other grooves and a little bit on the top so I don't scratch anything up. This is where I made my mistake. I'm looking at both these rings and not realizing that the one with the step on it has to go face down to act as an oil wiper, to prevent oil from getting pushed up on top of the cylinder. So this is my own fault right here. I'm obviously putting that ring on upside down. And then the compression ring goes on top of that. The compression ring doesn't have a step in it. That can go on either way. But now the trick is you don't want to line up, all of your gaps. You want to kind of make a Y pattern. You want to have one on the top, one at about 5 o'clock, and one at about 7 o'clock. Here I'm oiling the wrist pin. You push it in one side just to get it started. Then you can put your connecting rod in, again oiling it. There's no bushing, that's just straight aluminum. And that goes all the way in. And then you can put your circlips in on either side. One of them is going to be very easy to put in. The other side might be a little more difficult because the the wrist pin is going to be pushing up against it. So you may have to tap it with a socket. I believe a 7/16 deep socket is what I use. These can be kind of fiddly, so take your time. Alright, and here we use the socket to kind of recess that wrist pin so I can get access to the groove where the other C-clip goes in. And again, kind of tapping it in just to make sure it sits. Looks like we're all good. Now we can install the piston into the cylinder. Alright, the piston goes in, and now you have to compress each ring individually to kind of get it to slide down in. You can tap it with a rubber mallet, a wooden dowel, I use the wooden end of a hammer there. And this is, again, just fiddly. Just be sure not to mar anything. Use a little bit of oil when you do this. You don't have to go crazy with the oil, just, enough to get it to slip in easier. A screwdriver helps. And then finally it's in. Again, making sure things are clean. And now you can rotate your crankshaft to mate up with the bottom of the connecting rod. Making sure that's all the way bottomed out. Putting the new end cap on. And there is a torque spec on these. I believe it's 20 to 30 foot-pounds, but don't quote me on that. I put them at about 25 foot-pounds. You can use Loctite on them. I didn't, just in case I had to take this apart again. 25 foot-pounds seemed enough. Again, it's all aluminum, so you don't want to go stripping anything or breaking anything. Make sure you do lubricate those a little bit because they will stretch. So you kind of want the bolt to stretch. Alright, making sure everything goes up and down. Looks good. Now I'm going to put, it's 20W50, so there you go. Putting a little bit of oil on top of the piston just to lubricate the cylinder so I don't scratch it while I'm moving it around assembling things. And this should have been the warning sign when I noticed that the oil was actually pooling and not getting sucked down into the crankcase, that I had put that ring in upside down. So now the camshaft can go in, and I'm showing you where the step is. So there's actually a little 45-degree cut out of one of the teeth on that crankshaft sprocket, and that little circle on the camshaft lines right up with it. That's your top dead center. Oiling the outer case, making sure that there's oil in every little orifice. And looks like I forgot a gasket. Oh, I skipped it. So in the original one I had cut it out, but you basically put in the gasket. I used a little bit of RTV sealant on it. You don't have to if you don't need to. The paper gaskets are pretty absorbent. And I torqued all these bolts down to 18 foot-pounds. If your motor has a little bit of end play like mine does, you can actually go without the gasket and just put RTV in. I think next time I fiddle with this motor before I mount it to anything, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use straight RTV to take up some of that end play. Pretty simple. I mean, it's basically a lawnmower engine. They're very simple to work on. Like I said, just keep your area clean. Keep cleaning things as you go. Use oil when you're putting metal pieces together, and don't forget to fill the crankcase with oil. That would be the worst thing. So here I'm just checking everything moves correctly. Checking my gap. I believe it's supposed to be 0.14 on the intake and 0.10 on the exhaust. Are supposed to be your gaps. Grabbing a new head gasket. Finding the head. Making sure I put my little air shield on. All that metal sheeting is for is to make sure that there's a good air pocket around the engine when it's running. And that's pretty much it. So, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and take it easy.